Okay, thank you. Welcome to this session of Vectra about cyber attacks are not an act of black magic. Before we start, a little bit introduce the Vectra team in the Netherlands. So we are a quite big team in the Netherlands, from account managers to SEs. So I am Marcel Kosters. I'm a security or system engineer of Vectra. For that, so we are here on the stand there. So if you have questions afterwards, you can go there, and we will happy to assist you. For today's session, we talk about the cyber attacks. For that, a little bit to go back for that. So we have some challenges for that in security part. I'm not sure. I try to keep this a little bit interactive. Can someone of you mention some, let's say, challenges you have in your security environment or your security department? Someone? No. Okay. What we will see, there are a lot of questions or constraints in security department from a security perspective for that. So we will summarize them as a part of a spiral of more. So we have more remote users, more cloud services, more vulnerabilities where we need to take actions on a more quickly basic. So Ronald told earlier today from about an average of, I think it was 67, 69 vulnerabilities coming out on an average perspective that we need to cover each day for that perspective. So that's something we have to deal with, but there are a lot more for that. So with COVID, we changed a little bit working perspective from on-prem to cloud, so the attack surfaces are more expanded for that, but we also get more blind spots on top of that. And when we keep them all together, and we can talk about more, there are a lot more things happening, and what we do normally from a security perspective, we try to solve those kind of stuff independently from each other. So there is one issue, we buy another technology to cover that specific issue for that. We try to integrate it, but in the end, we have to deal with a lot more technologies, and each technology has our own alerting systems for that a SOC analyst needs to cover on as well. So there's a lot more alerts to handle for that, and that will stress the burdency of the SOC analyst in the world. So we try to cover one thing, but in the end it leads to more and more and more. So we have, let's say, kind of the spiral of more in our security environment for that. But from a SOC perspective, we need to deal with more also unknowns in the environment, and we try to deal with that or try to fix that and solve that in the environment. So what we had is we don't know exactly if we are compromised or not in the environments for that. We hope so, we are not for that. But when we look to some reporting, we also see that attackers are, let's say, a lot of times, months, sometimes years in the environment where we didn't aware of those attackers. They are there for that. And that's also part of the attack surfaces environment. So we have no idea if we are compromised right now. We have to deal with that. But the other issue is there are a lot more methods from attackers to get a foothold in your environment. So we have the groups as country from a ransomware part, but we have also nation states groups and APT groups where we have to deal with that. And they are more, let's say, opposed to organizations for that. So that's the one thing we need to deal with. But the other thing is when attackers has access for that, they also use the tooling. So think about Cobalt Strike or ransomware to get an understanding of the environment and what they can use for that to get, let's say, the broader foothold on the environment. So that's something we don't know how to keep pace with modern threats in that environment. And I think also from that perspective, we have the access part. So we are working with supply chain, a lot of supply chain for that. And in the last couple of years, and also from a COVID perspective, and the attackers went to, let's say, kind of SolarWinds for that, and get through SolarWinds access to your environment, and try to get also Log4Shell as an example as well. So they try to suppose, let's say, the supplier and get access from the supplier to your environment for that. So that's really, let's say, something important for that. And you can do the patching perspective, and that is needed. And we heard that Ronald saying that is needed, but we have not really an idea from, okay, is the attacker already in my environment through, let's say, kind of vulnerability in the system for that. So, and we can help you with that as well to get, let's say, detections, and we will talk about that during the sessions. And the also part is, we know we get a lot of events. Analyst needs to work on that for that, and they don't really know from, okay, which kind of events I need to take action on in the environment for that. So we need to say prioritize specific events, or maybe we need to change it a little bit from an event-driven to maybe an entity-driven part for that, to get foothold not from an event-based, but more from an entity, an account or a host, where you can match all the detections together on to, let's say, alert faster for that, and increase the decrease the time that an attacker is in your environment. To a little bit take a step back for that, and from, okay, how does an attack occur in your environment? We have the kind of kill chain here, and we have the compromise part, and the attackers exploit for that. Could be a phishing email, could be something else for that, but they bypass your prevention technology. Think about bypassing firewalls, bypassing antivirus. And that's, I think today it's pretty easy with AI as well. If you ask ChatGPT from a kind of malware, okay, give me 5, 6 new samples for this specific malware, you will have in 2 minutes, you have 6 new examples from malware that won't be recognized to an antivirus solution as well, because those are signature-based. And when the attacker has a foothold in the environment, they will infiltrate. They will get from, okay, which kind of system do I have access to, and how does the environment look like. But also the evade part is something that they know how the environment looks like. They know maybe an EDR solution with this on the system, and they will try to bypass the EDR solution because they know on which kind of actions EDRs will pay attention on and give an alert for that. So they try to evade that, so they will be under the radar in the end. And when they are under the radar, they try to escalate. They try to get lateral movement to other systems for that. They try to get higher privilege in the end. Maybe also kind of second backdoor of more foothold on the system. So the attacker is progressing in your environment. So you need to have, let's say, the kind of detections rules about that. And when they're bypassing EDR, you cannot leverage on the EDR anymore. And in the end, they will go to the breach part, and they find the data they were looking for. They escalate or exfiltrate it to maybe an external Dropbox or OneDrive solution for that. And in the end, that is something you don't want to happen for that. Because when they exfiltrate data, they will probably also run ransomware after that, if it's a ransomware group. So any time in between from, let's say, the infiltrate part and the evade, they try to evade EDR solutions, there are a lot of steps in between for that, where you can think about the detections for that. So this is really, let's say, the window to detect, and that's something you want to get as small as possible for that, and not going to, let's say, 200 days that an attacker is in your environment or for that. And that's the attack progression in the end. And in the note here, finding attack behaviors and progressing in the key. It's about that. The key is the attack progression for that. And that's typically when you are event-driven SIEM solution, you're looking to specific events. But if you change that little bit approach to an entity base, you will see the progression from a host going forward during the attack, and you know where to pay attention on for that. That's something we are not organization normally not really do, and looking really to the event base, and they will go to a kind of modeling, they think that's okay. Think about the pyramid of pain. This is a little bit other description, but the pyramid of pain is something you can work on from a SOC scene perspective. Where the first thing is get about the easy stuff is hashing IPs and domains. Really, let's say threat intel, static information in your environment. So normally pretty easy. We have threat intel partners in the world they're really looking to that. But the hashes can be changed a lot often for that. Can you leverage more on hashes right now, or do you need to know more dynamic solutions? It's the same for IP and domains. And we have the domain generators. They change the domains a lot often for that, but also from a cloud providers, they're changing names. And then we have the signatures, CVEs, part signature-based environment where you can need to look, and that is needed, let's say, for that. But from a security perspective, it's harder to, let's say, look for the tactics, techniques and procedures that our attackers are doing. And that I think is needed from a tactic perspective. We talked about the attack progression for that, where we, let's say, look to the techniques that our attackers are using. Think about the MITRE framework that is also using for that. So what Vectra did is we created AI models based from the attacks that are coming for that, and build, let's say, models for that where we can help with, let's say, the attack progression in the end. To a little bit, how will this look like in a kind of example from an attack perspective? So this is a pharmaceutical during COVID part where we had, let's say, one of our customers for that. And during COVID, pharmaceuticals, they were kind of target. We know that. They are looking for specific information for the COVID vaccine or for that. So also the employees are on target for that. So a lot of, let's say, went through LinkedIn in the end to do some job offerings from a competitor or something like that. So this is started with a LinkedIn targeted for specific, let's say, employees on this organization for that. And they had, let's say, chats with LinkedIn, and over the time they went going to WhatsApp for that. So the employee installed WhatsApp also on the laptop. And what they did was, let's say, changing documents through the WhatsApp in the end. And that's bypassing, let's say, the firewall because it's encrypted for that. Bypassing email security because it's not went over email. Firewalls also not. Security web proxy servers. They had it all in place. They thought they were safe in the end, but they bypassed it. So they get a foothold on that specific system through a compromised part. So that's the patient zero in this case. So they went from a patient zero for that installed kind of backdoor for that, and they building up a command and control tunneling to, let's say, hands on the keyboard on the end from an attacker perspective. So they had foothold on the system. So what is happening from an attack perspective going forward for that? So as this is, let's say, network traffic on the end, client was on the system, FireEye detects with an hidden HTTPS tunnel. We detected that without decrypting the traffic for that. It's just normal traffic what we get from a span port in this case. So we thought the HTTPS tunneling or command and control tunneling for that. So the attacker had access to this specific machine, and what it did was try to get, okay, which kind of information do I have from that specific machine installed probably with Cobalt Strike, get access, username, passwords for that, because administrators are also logged in or services with on that specific machine. So he had access to one system, got probably some credentials, and he went forward for that. So he tries to do the reconnaissance, okay, which kind of information is more in this specific environment for that. So one of the things that you can do it with LDAP queries for that to get information from the LDAP information. You can do scans for that, RPC scans to get information from systems, but in this case, it used already SMB file share enumeration. So look for specific file shares for that because he wanted that specific data for that. So that's the other, let's say, thing that we are detected on from the file share enumeration. We saw that given detection, and we see the progression of this specific machine. Going forward, admin credentials stolen from the server, get a port retrieve to get access to other servers as well. Also, the attack progression. We saw that, see the progression for that, alerted on this specific machine, and we see and match the detections together to that specific machine. And in the end, there was a privilege access anomaly, so probably he logged in on a specific other server for that. And that's something with the integrations we made, we stopped the alert. Or the specific attacker here. And it could be an integration with the EDR solution, it could be other integrations for that. So in this case, the attacker bypass a lot of security products they had already in place. So they get a foothold, get the progression for that, and in the end, we stopped the attack before the breach was happening, before they were looking to and get the specific data this attacker was looking for that. So this is one of an example on a basic, let's say, network attack. But you probably have a kind of hybrid environment. And think about what could happen here more from that. They have the admin credentials for that. And when you have, let's say, Office 365, Azure AD, they can go forward and go to those kind of environments, store credentials maybe with SharePoint. So that's, let's say, the complete attack progression. So if you have single alerts, probably a SOC analyst won't, let's say, look to that specific alerts in a short time period. We talk about the hybrid, let's say, environment, Office 365. So a little bit, maybe an easy example from an Office 365 environment or Azure AD where they logged in. Another, let's say, example here where a personal device was affected, probably a remote worker could be here. And what they get access to that specific machine. And they thought, okay, there's an Office 365 environment, so they went to the SaaS solution, Office 365. One of the examples, and is what they did is bypassed the MFA file suspicious sign-on. Pretty normal, you can bypass also MFA for that, but you can also kind of ignore it for that. So normal, pretty okay alert or detection that you can think of. But also, the second step, what it did was the sign-on in the end. So this case was a suspicious sign-on. Normally, we say, okay, look to IP address. Okay, maybe the user is in, let's say, Italy, but it's kind of summer break. They are there. It could be, so let's ignore it. It looks okay for that. But we are looking for more than just one artifact. So it's going to, in total, 20 artifacts. Think about, okay, which kind of machine is this? What's running on the client? Which kind of browser are you looking for that? So in total, 20 kinds of artifacts for that. So we created the alert, the detection. Okay, that's something going on, especially also combined for that. So we stopped the attack, but think about this pretty normal, let's say, could be normal behavior, but think about what could happen if we don't, let's say, blocked or stopped here. So what they could do is, let's say, get access to OneDrive, as an example, install a DLL file. And what the most organizations have with OneDrive, they have the sync option on, where you sync, let's say, data from on-prem to cloud, cloud to on-prem, as an example. So the DLL file went on the system as well. Could be malicious for that, get access to the specific system, and go from cloud to on-prem. So that could be an example. But also an example is probably, you know, with SharePoint, you can look for e-discovery search for specific, very fast for specific information as well. And what you can do is get the output to a Power Automate flow of Microsoft Power Automate as PowerShell in the cloud for that. So you can automate stuff where you're looking for and exfiltrate the data to another system, or maybe OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Cloud as well. So you can exfiltrate that. So those are things that could be happen in normal environment if you don't stop it here, as an example. Or maybe in an example, go access to email, get the emails for that, and send emails from that specific organization out to other organizations, do a kind of CEO fraud, ask for changing counting numbers, send invoices out. So that just top of my head, that are things that could happen if you don't block it here. So what is important is, let's say, the signal clarity in the end. But before we go to signal clarity, we need to talk about the coverage part. Attackers are going from on-prem to cloud, cloud to on-prem, SaaS solution, identity, that's all happening. So we need to, let's say, get information from all the systems together. So coverage is key in that. And when we have the coverage, get all the information, we need to have, let's say, the clarity, the signals for that. So what Vectra is doing is, let's say, we build detections based from all the data what we have for that, and we build AI rules detections on that. So what we did was we bring security engineers, security specialists, incident responders all together with data scientists and build, let's say, from the attackers, the TTP specific, let's say, detections for that. And not only one, there's a lot of them together for that. And where we are looking to really think about the attacker, what they are doing, what's the progression, how does it look like if they do this kind of stuff. So we build detections on that. And that is, let's say, a lot of organizations are talking about AI right now. We're doing it, and Vectra is doing it for over 10 years already. So we know how to look to data. But when we look to the data, we need to know what is kind of malicious. When you probably run a kind of vulnerability scan in your environment, looks like normal, but an attacker is also doing normal behavior for that. So you can do AI triages. We know from over time, okay, which kind of system is doing what for that. And then we have the progression. You need to focus on what is urgent for you as a SOC analyst, as an organization standpoint. So we have the prioritization based on data. We map also to, okay, which kind of system this could be for you. You can change it by yourself a little bit, and also where are they any progression for that. So you need to take action on the right kind of systems and spend your time well. And then we have the intelligence control part. Think about the response actions for that. So also Access 42 is delivering a service on top of Vectra for that. But what we also can do is integrated investigations for that, targeted response. Think about integration with Active Directory as an example to quickly disable specific users for that to, let's say, contain that specific account, or integrate with EDR solutions to block a specific host. So what makes us unique in that way? So the first thing is we have to deal with the threats, with the threat actors today. I already called them, it could be a country from a ransomware part, could be APT for that. But when they are in an organization, they look to do specific steps as an example. So we're looking to that kind of stuff and building, let's say, the detections on that. So it's not only from a threat actor, it's also from the vulnerabilities, and they are there, as an example, Log4Shell for that. So that's something we have to deal with. But as said, when they are in the system, they look to the same amount of, let's say, progression, do the same steps each time. So we need to be looking for these steps further. So as said, we bring the security researchers together. And what we did was we looked to the TTPs in the end for that and mapped them also to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, where we're really looking to the techniques and tactics they are doing for that. So we are mapping to also the detections to the MITRE framework. But only looking to the attacks is not I would say, sufficient. It's good, but you can go a little bit step further. So we're also doing the MITRE defend part. And MITRE defend is looking to the countermeasures from a detection standpoint for that. So we are also looking to that, and we have a lot of, let's say, patents based on MITRE defend. And this is not what we did for let's say, a year for that. We did that from the beginning. We built the AI models based from how, and when an attacker is in your environment, what they are doing, which kind of steps they are doing without decrypting, let's say, the traffic in the environment. And then we said already from the beginning, we need to change, let's say, the time that an attacker is in your environment from months to, let's say, minutes in the end. And we want to see them very fast and respond as soon as possible for that. So detections is key. So when we talk, we have, let's say, the attacker exploits. So patient zero is that there is one system is compromised for that. But when one system is compromised, they will go further in the organization. And there is what Vectra is going at from a detection standpoint. So going really from a detection phase and have detections built on those kind of techniques they are using. But when you have, let's say, detection, see it, you want to quickly respond in the answer. Therefore, we have the integrations with EDR solution, but also with Active Directory to respond very quickly. And detection is, I will say, is really needed these days. It's Sans says, prevention is ideal, but detection and response is a must in the end. Especially these days, we are in a heavily changing world with AI for that, so we cannot leverage on prevention anymore. We need to go further and look to the detections in systems. So then, I see I have a little bit time. Attackers are moving from on-prem to cloud, cloud to on-prem. So we need to have coverage on both sides for that to get the total overview when an attacker is the environment for that. So think about public cloud. We can get data from there, Azure, AWS. We have SaaS solutions, Microsoft Identity, Azure AD. We can integrate with those as well. And we can also get a little bit more context in the environment. So then we have the platform, we have the detections for that, and we see, let's say, how the attacker is behavior. For that, we prioritize those kind of detections, show that to you, that you know where to take actions on, and where you need to investigate and respond in the end for that. And this is all, let's say, in the end, quickly respond to, let's say, attackers that are in your environment for that. So increase, let's say, the time, the dwell time, as they call it, from, let's say, months to minutes in your time. So they cannot do, let's say, the data exfiltration, the real attack. And then we have the, let's say, also from our part, 24/7 coverage. We can help you with that, but also Access 42 can help you with those kind of environments.